really excited about this show because we're going to be talking about some guys that are a little bit under the radar, some draft steals. And the reason that we're going to talk about that is because we've got some great questions in the mailbag. I teased the mailbag last week. We got some great questions from the mailbag. And so I'm going to get right into it right away with a question from Trent. And Trent Randall, he wrote in and he said, "Hey, Joel, love the show and your Big Ten work. My question for you is, who do you think is the most underrated or not talked enough about player in this year's NFL draft?" And that got me thinking. I was like, actually, there's a lot. And there's kind of guys at every position group that I feel like are a bit underrated. And forgive me, Trent, I'm going to reword your question just a little bit because these are guys that I think are going to have a lot of value, i.e. they're going to be draft steals. And it's hard to be underrated as much as it is to be a guy that can essentially give great value, in particular in the middle of the draft or maybe even late in the draft as well. And at some of these positions, there are guys that are really good players that are being overlooked right now. And because of that, they're going to be draft steals. I'm going to give you a reason why I think each of these guys might not be getting the hype, and then why I think that they're going to be a good steal and a good pick for somebody come here, Kansas City, end of April. So here we go. Let's start with the quarterback position and a guy that I think is going to be a nice draft steal, and that's Jake Haener, the quarterback from Fresno State. And I know that there was a lot of talk about Jake Haener early in the draft process, and everyone was like, hey, he's the guy that you want to go after. He's the guy that's going to be the next Brock Purdy. And listen, you just got to go be Jake Haener. And the reason that you can do that is because Jake's really good, and he's a good football player. He's being overlooked a little bit right now because he doesn't have really the top end arm that you're going to want to see, like maybe at the top of the draft. But let me tell you, you overlook this guy at your own peril, because here's what he does have: toughness, competitiveness. He's a great leader. He's very instinctual in the way that he processes information on the field. He understands the system very well. He gets the ball out quickly. He's accurate with the ball. He can throw on the run. And when you watch this guy play, and in particular in games in which you would feel like Fresno State was a little overmatched, he generally plays his best football. There was one a couple of years ago in particular I talked a lot about, and rightly so. Haener was unbelievable against UCLA on the road a couple of years ago. He threw for, 455 yards in that game. He had a couple of late touchdowns. One of those touchdowns, he didn't get the ball until there was like 45 seconds left in that game. He has all the competitiveness and toughness that you need, and this is the type of guy that comes in. Immediately, the coaches love him in an NFL locker room because he's going to learn the system. He's going to keep his mouth shut. He's not a distraction, and he's just going to get to work. And then when he gets out there, guess what? He can operate the system. He can do everything that you need to. He anticipates well. He understands information and processes it very quickly from the pocket. And so for those reasons, he's going to stick. I just think Jake Haener is going to be a steal at the quarterback position. I don't know exactly when he's going to get drafted, but someone in that 5th, maybe 6th round, I think that they're going to take a flyer on Jake Haener. It's not going to surprise me a bit if he has to go onto the football field next year in the league and potentially play, and I think he's going to do a nice job. So Jake Haener, my first draft steal. All right, at the running back position, my next guy, and I haven't done a show yet without talking about the running back position. I think there's some really good players at running back, specifically at the top of the list, right? You know who I'm talking about. Bijan Robinson from Texas, Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. These guys are versatile. They're explosive. They're everything that you want. And I think Bijan's going to get taken in the first round. I think Jahmyr might get taken in the first round, in particular if you're looking at the end of that first round. So what does that leave? Well, it leaves us with a number of good players. And when you've got a number of good running backs and then people and organizations looking at the middle of the draft or maybe later to potentially take those guys, you've got some really good value picks. I really loved TCU running back Kendre Miller. I thought Miller was outstanding when I was preparing for their game against Texas Tech. I loved watching his film. When I talked with the coaching staff, they loved his work ethic. He was a team-first guy. Everything about him, I thought, screamed he's going to be a really good player at the next level, and yet he hasn't gotten the hype that I thought he would get. And the reason is that he doesn't have like that that burst, right? That eye-opening home run ability. And I understand that, although I will tell you this. When you turn on the tape, here's what you see. High productivity. It doesn't matter if he's inside the tackles, outside the tackles. Could he run the outside zone a little bit better? Yeah, maybe. Does he always read it perfectly? No, not necessarily. But here's what he's got. Great instincts and feel for how to move the ball down the field. He runs very physical. It's very rare that the first defender brings him down and he can catch it out of the backfield. He's got to get to some work in pass protection, but what running back that's a middle round guy doesn't? Right? So when you look at this guy, it's productivity. So you overlook maybe like, hey, does he have that home run step? Maybe not. But guess what? The dude produces. He's big. He's over 210 pounds, and he's the type of guy that can come in there and play right away. He's also not afraid. And I'm not talking about afraid in the sense of just like running the ball between the tackles in the physical sense of the game. He's not afraid of competition. So it doesn't matter where he gets drafted. When he gets drafted, he's just going to go in there and methodically go about his business to try to get on the field. How do I know that? I know that because he chose to go to TCU, even though TCU had just signed its highest recruit ever in Zach Evans. And so now Zach Evans is a running back. And guess what? Kendre Miller, he's like, I'm going to go there too. Because hey, I trust myself. That mentality is going to pay huge dividends for him moving into the NFL. Okay? He ain't afraid, and he's going to go out there, and he will produce because the dude is a really good football player. You watch his film, he produces, and he will at the next level as well.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.